A warm welcome to a Podful of Saints on Tuesday, the 18th of October, 2022. Oh, the nights are drawing in, but we're not getting depressed by that. We're happy. We'll tell you why in a minute if you don't already know. With myself, David Tavener, chuckling away there, Jake Ellacott.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Lee. Hello, everyone.
And the other one there, not the Lee, not the everyone, Lee Wood.
Good evening, fellas. How are we?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lee. You do look like a defendant.
I was interviewing for the City job, mate, but I don't think I need to now because Nobby's doing a sterling effort.
Signed, sealed, delivered, isn't it? Signed, sealed, delivered. Right, the game we're going to look back on last Saturday, Parkview Road, 15th of October, Welling United 0, St Albans City 3, but we always win down there. It's 3 in a row now, so that's a gimme. That was quite impressive, wasn't it, Jake?
Do you know what? It actually was. I did not see that coming at all. I know we were fairly positive on the podcast and we thought that we'd go down there, do something, but I did not see that coming. 3-0, really good performance. I'd almost say the perfect away performance. You know, capitalised on Welling's mistakes, defended well, actually looked pretty good going forward, and then hit them with a sucker punch at the end. But yeah, overall, it's almost, I can't take any negatives at all. And it was just almost the perfect afternoon in South East London, wasn't it?
Right, that's it. We'll see you next week then. Jake summed it up.
Cliche.
I know. Would you expect, Lee? Would you expect? Yes, I agree most of that. We said last week we thought Nobby had attacked David Noble. Give me his proper name, really. Nobby had adopted a more attacking formula, whatever you like, just from his substitutes in the previous games. But Saturday, he went for it with his lineup. He went for the two, well, I suppose they're wing backs, but they were more old-fashioned wingers, really. And with Tafari Moore and Devante Stanley, and it worked because when we went forwards, we didn't stop when our paths were blocked. The balls to them were quick. And they are quick players. And we put pressure on Welling. It wasn't gung-ho all-out attack. Welling probably had most of the game, really. But I think Jake touched on it there. We defended really well. They had very, very few clear chances, which is surprising because early on they looked a very useful side, I thought, Jake, and they looked they might give us a few problems, but they didn't create an awful lot, did they? We shut them out really well.
Yeah, we defended really well. And I mean, it's been a case for a lot of this season, hasn't it? Defence hasn't been an issue. But I thought Welling, we all said it would be a really difficult place to go to. And as I said early on, Welling caused a bit of trouble. They hit the bar. But aside from that, I thought the Saints contained them really well. And I think it wasn't just the defence. I think it was the whole side. I think the change in formation and the change of players that Nobby made or Noble made going into Saturday worked really, really well. And I think before the game, there was a couple of us discussing on social media that change of players. Is that really, really correct? There's quite a few there. Didn't expect that. But it worked really well. But it wasn't just the defence. I thought the whole team, midfield, Hugh Dawson, again, I think coming in there did a really good job both going forward and defensively. And it felt like the side just had a really good balance, didn't it? What could you really question? And we have to remember as well, all that with a 17-year-old in defence in Ricardo Di Trolio.
Yes, his first starting appearance. And we said before, the little bits we've seen of him, we think he's calm and assured. And he certainly is. There's no two ways about it. Maybe a couple of times they got past him, but overall he had the upper hand. And that's a very promising future there. We shan't get too carried away as yet after one full game, but he did look good. You're right there about the changes. Nobby made 4 changes. Out went Ches Isaac. Out went Chris Paul, Manef Sundaya, and of course Callum Adebayo was injured. You mentioned Hugh Dawson came in and Di Trolio, but he had Michael Clark and Mukena. So 3 of the players he brought in are actually defensive. So it looks like a negative move, but it wasn't. The way he lined them up with Joe Neal up front, we had 2 up front, which we've not had, and it worked a treat. The balls we put down that right-hand wing for Joe to get after, they were superb into his path. So we had them on the back foot whenever we went forward. It wasn't just a case of, we go backwards again like we've seen so many times. And we got rewarded with the 3 goals. All right, they gave us 2 of them. What I liked about the 3rd goal George Morrell come on just a couple of minutes earlier as the last minute substitute, so deep into injury time. He got a good line out to the corner flag, but he didn't. He cut the ball back from the goal line. In comes Shaun Jeffers, 3-0. And that goal, not one off their goal difference, added 1 or 2 hours, and it took us above them in the table. Just shows how important it is to be positive throughout a match and don't just settle for what you've got.
I mean, I want to hear from the man in the suit.
Well, look, I mean, to be fair, I have to say, I was going to go to the game on Saturday, but as Jake will know, I had an absolute nightmare on Saturday morning, so I couldn't make the game, unfortunately. However, what I would say is that Welling's strength over the last sort of couple of games has been through the middle of the park. I think bringing Dawson in with that extra legs and that strength, it sort of pushed them out wide to take on our fullbacks. Now that is our strength, because our fullbacks are absolutely fantastic. So they were getting absolutely no purchase in the middle of the park. They then get spread out wide where they faced our fullbacks, and they weren't getting any purchase there either. Very astute. But one thing I would say, watching both sets of the highlights, is that the body language of our players now, because, and we spoke about Zane last week and how, he could still add something, he could still progress. Now, I'm telling you now, fellas, a month ago, Zane doesn't take on that shot and score because the confidence was so low. And I think what's happened now, you can see that, heads are up, chests are out. And I think that is a real effort for Nobby, Sir David of Noble, to sort of implement that character back into the side, because it's always been there. The skill has always been there. But I think in such a short space of time now, the players are almost playing him into the position permanently, really.
What the highlights didn't show you, Lee, was the excellent work Zane did throughout the game. There's a couple of occasions he took players on, he went past them, and it was just like watching the old Zane. So it gave us more zip to get forward from midfield. And Shaun Jeffers, he spent most of the game on his feet, which he hasn't always done this season. And it was like the old Shaun. He was buzzing around, and to come running in out of nowhere for that third goal, after he put the ball down to George to start with, go running into the box. He wasn't bothered clattering into defenders. He just wanted that ball, and he strokes it in, and he's now got 51 goals in 85 games. Oh, my camera's falling down. It's brilliant. I think I'm going to record this on the floor in a minute. Carry on, Jake, while I sort out this technical difficulty.
I think, Dave, you raised a couple of really good points, shockingly, this week already. I think the substitution's really positive again, and I think we got used to that under Ian, didn't we, of them not really having much of an impact. But yeah, Shaun, of course, you just want your striker to score a goal however he can, and we thought about that at Cheshunt, didn't we, and thought he'd really kick on after that, and he didn't. But it felt like that first goal against Welling, it was obviously a huge mistake by the Welling man, but Shaun's got to be in there the right place. But what really got me was how calm he was to put the keeper on the floor, go round him. He didn't look like a striker low on confidence in that situation, and it was absolutely brilliant, and just silenced the Welling fans. And as you say, I think it gave him a real buzz for the rest of the game. And I think as well, just generally, you could tell from almost straight away from the kickoff, the players were playing positive, but they have that positive mindset as well. Like Lee said, Zane shooting from there, everyone having a go, Joe Neal looking really dangerous and busy. And even in the second half, comfortable, 2-0 up. Every time we went forward, we looked dangerous. And that's because the players had the right mindset to go forward and attack at every opportunity. Don't be afraid to shoot. Mistakes will happen, that's fair enough. But they look like they enjoyed themselves as well. And how long's it been? I mean, I'd argue going on for not far off a year, is it, since we've seen these lads enjoy themselves out on the pitch again?
Well, another positive thing that Nobby brought in for the Welling corners and free kicks, he left Joe Neal up front. We've not left a man up front when we've been defending set pieces, so we had an outlet. Why not go back to the old days? Modern coaches won't like it nowadays because they're trying to stifle the game and strangle it. Maybe even put two up front, then really put the opposition on the back foot, even though they've got the corner. Might be a bit ambitious, but it's something to think about. And it worked well. It's only in, I think, injury time when they got a corner when we didn't leave an extra man up front. But it's just positive under Nobby, and he's been rewarded, isn't he? 7 points from 3 games. Very unlucky, actually, not to have 9 points.
But I think the whole issue is that you touched upon it there, Tavs. The players he's bringing in, 4 changes, you know, and they've not put a foot wrong, you know, because the squad is so close knit, you know, and you know when you've got the luxury of bringing Michael Clark and Dawson, Joe Neal back into the setup, then you know that they're going to produce in terms of the squad dynamic because they've been established players for that long now. So you're not having to worry about individual performances. You can now concentrate on the team, and I think, you know, it's proven. Jake said there, it's probably the best performance of the entire season to date, Jake. You know, and I think now when you've got a positive coach, a positive interim manager, whatever you want to call him, that ultimately relays back onto the players as well.
Well, you mentioned the interim manager there, Lee. I don't think any of us have got an inkling what's happening with regards to his position, whether he's going to get the job. I believe he's hinted he may be interested in it, or how the interview's going with others. Do you think we should give it to him, or should they wait another game, see if he gets another good result, and then it becomes impossible not to give it to him, perhaps?
I think the next game's a hard one to judge him against. You know, Dartford are a decent side, and Dowson will be the most experienced manager he's come up against, and we'll see how he fares then. But I don't see why we've got to change anything at the minute. And speaking to quite a few fans at the game, and also fans after the game on Saturday, it almost felt like the players were playing for Nobby. They all know him. He's been in that dressing room for a long time now. They all get along with him. We know that he likes a bit of fun and he enjoys playing with those players. He wouldn't have stuck around if he didn't. And I think they're playing for him, and I think they want him to stick around, and they're enjoying their football under him. So at the minute, I think, you know, I agree that it'd be good to get a decision. I mean, I'd like that decision to be Nobby appointed, but why change anything at the minute? It's working really well. And this Dartford game, I'd argue, it's a bit of a free hit for him, isn't it? You know, Clarence Park, it should be a decent crowd, hopefully a nice day against a tough opposition. But if Nobby is willing to play that sort of similar football that he did against Welling, anything can happen.
It's interesting, isn't it? You say about waiting, because sometimes teams do get a bounce when they get a change of manager, whether it's an interim manager or the new permanent one. So can the club afford to wait a bit longer to see if it is just a bounce? But you think, well, no, it's because he's changed the tactics and the team as well. He's been very bold.
I think that's it, because just because they're playing for Nobby doesn't mean they weren't playing for Ian. But I think what David has brought into the side is that to the different setup and a different system. I was speaking to a fan who goes down to the training sometimes, and he said the training is so much different. You know, there's smiles on faces, and you know the tempo is a bit more upbeat, which I think is just testament to what Nobby brings to the table, certainly. But why change it? There's no rush. There is no rush. You know, if performances and results weren't going our way like they were previously, then okay, maybe we could sort of step up the pace a little bit in terms of the recruitment. But I think as long as we're playing well, which is your tick box, Tabs, as long as we're getting results, which is Jake's and ours tick box as well, you know, then there's absolutely no need, because ultimately, who is there out there that's just going to come and walk into the side and do what Nobby's doing now?
Of course, the interesting thing is, if he has a bad run, which he will have at some point, it's unavoidable. Has he got the contacts to bring players in? Like we've already, his coach, his assistant manager, like at the moment, is from the academy, which is not National League South experience, which is not to put John Meeks down, don't get me wrong. So you wonder, would he be able to strengthen the side? Has he got the contacts? There's only one way to find out, of course, but it's asking a lot.
I mean, I'd counter that by saying, you know, with the new structure they put in place as head coach, wouldn't it? That's what they're advertising for. Would it really be his decision? Would it more be the director of football's decision to try and strengthen that squad? And it comes to one of the many questions we've asked, isn't it? So I think that's a good question. But then David Noble's got so many connections in the Football League. He's been, you know, I wouldn't see that as an issue. But I agree with both of you. What is the rush at the minute?
But I don't think that his naivety in the coaching setup is a particularly bad one, because again, there is no fear there. There's no expectation. So he's almost got a free rein. And if he does get the job, say he's got given the job to the end of the season or whatever it may be, he knows the sort of player he wants to play for him, and he knows the sort of player. Listen, we're talking. Yes, he's inexperienced in terms of management, but my God, I would beg to differ. There's no more experienced player in the entire division. So I think we are overthinking that element to it. My concern would be the relationship he's going to have going forward with Dean Austin. In so much that, you know, Nobby wants to play a certain way of football, and if Dean Austin doesn't like the way he's playing in relation to what Ian was sort of doing, you know, there's because let's face it, the elephant in the room is that the relationship between Ian and Dean wasn't the greatest. So if David does get the gig full time, then you'd imagine there's going to have to be some conversations there going forward about the style, because ultimately, yes, Dean is the director of football, but he's got to listen to David Noble, of all people, certainly.
Yeah, it'd be a shame to see us change our style now, which is a lot more attack-minded than we've been used to since, last December.
Yeah.
The way we played during that time was more in keeping with the modern game. You don't lose the ball, if at all possible. You don't give it away. The way under David Noble, no, I don't want to not lose games. I want to win games. A totally different mindset, and we've seen it from his lineups and from the results.
Yeah, it's possible to play attractive, winning football and not want to lose a ball as well. It just requires decent players, and David Noble's doing that, but also a decent management team with a decent idea. And you know, we have to say, David Noble's probably one of the best players we've ever seen at being able to keep a ball. So, you know, I think that's a good starting point. But what I would say as well is, you know, if the club did make a decision this week and bring in someone new, you know, if they didn't get off to the greatest start, if their first 3 or 4 games wasn't quite to the standard of Nobby, I know it's easy to say, but I think some fans would be like, oh, why did we make that change? Because David Noble is a popular figure with City supporters. You heard it at the end of the game on Saturday, the chanting for him. I think you've heard it at Clarence Park in recent games, the support from even the younger fans. So I'd say it's almost, in my opinion, for the owners, I think it would almost be the perfect appointment in a way. It would just appeal to a lot of people and a lot of supporters.
Well, Ian Anderson, first 3 games, 1 point. Nobby, first 3 games, 7 points. Why did we waste 6.5 years, for goodness sake?
I knew that was coming.
But I think what's you know, I think the great thing from Saturday, isn't it, how much positivity it's brought back to the club and the really good vibes around the support. In recent weeks, it hadn't been great, and with the change of Ian and everything, I think some supporters are a bit like, oh, what way are we going? But I think Saturday's win, I think, is a real statement of, if we're not careful here, you know, we could actually compete to be a top 7 side. It's not an outstanding league, is it? Let's be honest. I think we could end up anywhere.
Well, I think you mentioned about the free ticket, whatever, for coming Saturday against Dartford. They've won their last 6 games. They made a slow start, but they've got going now. I was surprised defeating the FA Cup early on. They're not going to come much tougher than Dartford, the way things are going for them at the moment. You won't want to see it as a wild card and we go gung-ho and it doesn't matter if we lose. Because we didn't do that Saturday. You'll have one eye on keeping it tight, but you can go there pretty confident down the park Saturday, thinking we're going to give it a good go.
But that's all we've asked for, Tabs. You know, that is all we've asked for. To suggest we don't mind losing football games is wrong. But we just want to be competitive. And if we are going to lose football games, we want to do it on our turn, you know, sort of attacking football, trying to win the game as opposed to what you said earlier, trying not to lose it. And I think what we have now in David, he's installed an absolutely fantastic mentality about, well, look, it's a football game. It's also the entertainment business as well. So we're going to try, if people are going to pay their money to come down and see my football team, then we're going to go out and try and entertain. And in the process, if we get wins and points, fair, you know, that's fair play. But ultimately, I think it's a very defeatist attitude to sort of say, oh, you know, he's got a free rein. If he loses, it doesn't really matter. I don't think he's going to think like that. Certainly not. But what I would suggest, and I know what you meant, Jake. But the thing is, mate, is that time will tell now just how serious Nobby is about whether he wants the job or not. because I don't think he wanted it first off, Tavs, you know, because you spoke to him and the way he was sort of answering the questions from Will and the media team. But I tell you what, mate, if he starts getting a few more results underneath his belt, he's going to find it harder and harder to say no.
You mentioned about the interviews with Will there. They've not been the best in the world, have they? In fact, last Saturday is one of the better ones because we couldn't hear Will. We can just block out David as now as well. That'd be even better. But it'll come with him. It'll get better. The more he gets used to it, it'll get better. And another positive thing, Nobby, a player who didn't actually play on Saturday, he brought in 17, I think he is, Luca Cardines on the bench. Now, apparently, he is lightning fast, wide player. So although he didn't get a run out, it's another positive sign. And we've got to be impressed with what Nobby's done. I think we all are. But do you realistically see us beating Dartford?
Well, Dartford are, you know, they're not Barcelona. You know,
no, that's right.
We've beaten Dartford before when, you know, because the thing is, you could almost say that we had their number for quite a number of years. And yes, they're on good form. But I tell you what, we've got a bit of confidence now. We've got a bit of swagger. And as Jake said, quite rightly, mate, at home, Nobby's going to have the players absolutely ramped up for this. And we'll see where we are. But I'm not. There's nothing to fear in this division. Yes, teams are 1,000 times better than us. We know that. But at the minute, you know, it's 11 against 11, and they're going to be a bit more wary about us now than they were, say, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
you're right about Ian's record against Dartford, because we traditionally had a poor record against them. He came in, he won 5 of his first 6 against them, but now I think we've won only 1 of the last 6 against them. It's gone back the other way. And not that means anything at all, because it's this year's teams that matter. We've struggled at home. We won our last home game, which was encouraging. I don't know. I like to think we can get something out of it.
I think it'd just be nice for the home fans to be entertained, wouldn't it? Because this season, the entertainment at home has really been lacking, as Lee suggested. It'd just be nice to see the Saints go out there, give it a go, and have an entertaining, fun game, and just really go toe-to-toe with Dartford. I'm sure Nobby's smart. I'm sure he won't, you know, throw everything at it and leave us exposed. But I think he'll fancy us against them, and the lads will be full of confidence. You saw it at the end with them celebrating with the supporters, and even after the first goal, Shaun's goal, the huddle the players had straight afterwards. I think you can see how positive they all look at the minute. And of course, other factors as well. We might have Mitchell Weiss back on the bench. He might be able to come on because he played for the B side, didn't he, at the weekend? So, you know, and like you said, Dave, as well, you've now got players like the lad that was on the bench on Saturday, and also George Murrell that came on, that might be able to change a game. Might not be amazing, might not be able to do it for half hour, but it could just be that half something that might change it in our fashion, or in our whatever word I'm looking for, in our favour. And yeah, I think it's great to see how positive everyone is going into this game, and it's such a change, isn't it?
So, are you going to go for a home win then, mate?
3-0 Dart.
I think one person we should sign is referee Andrew Humphreys. That was his 8th game he's taken charge of us, and we won 5 of them.
Cool.
Anyway, right, okay, let's have predictions, but we've got something else we're going to do in a minute, but let's have predictions for Saturday.
Go on, Jake.
Oh, I'll go 2-1 Saints. Why not?
You always do. Why not just write it down and not ask you?
Exactly.
I think it's going to be a tougher test, and I, like you, Tavs, I'm going to be a little bit more sceptical. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, mate.
Yeah. Either of which will be satisfactory, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Last night, the St City Trust had their AGM. That's on Monday night. I expect you two were there, so you can give us a full-blown account of what happened.
Oh, it was a barnstorming evening, mate. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll all the way from the Trust, as it always is. Go on, Jake. You're part of the inner sanctum of the Trust now, mate.
I thought it was quite a positive evening. You know, lots of interesting things, lots of the things that the Trust have tried to do this year, and quite open about things that they haven't been able to do and things that aren't necessarily working at the minute. I think positives for me were that Ian Rogers, the chairperson, talking openly how we need to get more younger fans involved in the trust and planning for the future of the trust, which I think is the first time that's ever really been discussed, which is really important. Yeah, there's lots of positives, and I think as well an agreement that the trust needs to start communicating with fans much more and much better. And there's things that be hopefully start to be put in place sometime soon. But yeah, Lee, what did you think of it? I think you sort of reflected many sort of similar thoughts after discussing it with you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Tabs, the positives that I took out of it was Jake actually brought me around, which was pretty much unheard of. But also, I think on a serious note, the club have now accepted that they need to promote the trust more as well from their element. It can't always be. I mean, I put the question forward to Ian that the crowds have gone up, but the trust membership has gone down. And forgive me, there's a certain demographic of the committee, Jake and Julie aside. But it needs people to join the trust. But ultimately, you've got to have an incentive for people to do that. Raffling boxes of chocolates and a £2.99 bottle of plonk on a Saturday isn't really going to do it. You need to have that drive that there's going to be a real element of change. If there's a genuine concern or question that needs to be relayed to the club, you need to know, A, you've got the people in place to put that question forward, but also more importantly, B, there's got to be an understanding and a drive from the club to accept those concerns and deal with them with the grace and respect from which they were dealt with in the first place. Because too many times in the past, by Ian's own account, that, you know, he's been putting questions to the club and they've almost been sort of put on the back burner. There's more important things to worry about. There are no more important things to worry about than the voice of the fans at any club, and St Albans City in particular, because the fans have always been there. The hardcore fans have always been there to support the club. Yes, okay, they criticise the club, but that's probably true. But what I would say, the trust have now realised that succession planning needs to be discussed. There needs to be a new element, a new entity, a younger voice going forward, but one that is reflective of all fans, no matter of age.
Not only a new voice, Lee. I mean, I don't know who is involved in the trust, in the positions of everything, so I'm not a member of it. But does it also need more or fresh blood to add some vibrancy to it? I don't mean membership, I mean the actual committee.
Yes, but I think you can only, but people aren't exactly forthcoming. You know, people aren't signing up to trust, because the thing is, Ian's been doing such a sterling job for so long. There's almost an element of, well, you know, if it's not broken, but he's so respected by the club and the fans that there is no better person to put that voice forward. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back onto you. Is there a reason why you're not a member of the trust? Because this is a genuine question that people are asking loads of different supporters. Jake and I have sort of been asking other fans that we know as well. And the reasons vary. So it'd be really interesting to know, for someone who's supported the club for so long, why you're not a member.
I suppose mine's historical more than anything, Lee. You go back to its early days and it laid out what it was going to do, and it didn't do most of them. It didn't live up to what it originally said. So I've steered clear of it, and not being a member hasn't particularly bothered me in the years since, unfortunately. Maybe it should.
It's interesting. It's good that we can have these discussions. And Lee, you're right. We've asked several fans, haven't we? I think Dave, I think you're totally right as well about that the fresh blood needed both, well, at all levels at the trust. And Lee would know we've tried persuading fans to join, and especially even fans that are vocal and unhappy about things. We will tell them, you know, speak to the trust, get engaged with the trust, and they just don't bother. So I don't know why that is, and I think that's something the trust is definitely looking into. Papers are being prepared and produced. But I thought yesterday evening was a positive step overall, which was good. And hopefully stuff like the increased communication and looking to get more younger fans involved does prove to be successful. Because Lee, we talked about it, didn't we, beforehand, how important that trust can be to a thriving football club. the St Albans City Football Club has improved a lot with the crowds, etc., and the trust should have an important role to play in all that.
But
You're
membership
absolutely
is
right.
cheap, isn't it? Sorry, Lee, membership is cheap now. Are you able to say how many members the trust has?
It was, as of last night, it was 76 or 77, something like that. And whereas before, previous seasons been well over 100. But even at the height and the pomp of the trust, a couple of hundred, it was. But even those people there, they were quite vocal because people don't really understand the reason why the trust was set up in the first place. At the minute, and I don't want to sound disrespectful, but there was a period when the trust was just comfortable. I think because Stand By Your Saints were very visible and very active in the community and around the club with sort of various incentives. And I think now is the time for people to get on board with the trust, because there has to be, and I made the point last night, Jake, I said the club are moving forward in terms of the way that they're conducting themselves. And my only fear is that the trust is getting left behind. They're very limited in what they can do on a match day, but also they're very limited in their skill set in relaying issues to the fans. They're hardly on social media. And that's not a criticism of the people involved. It's just the situation that they find themselves in. And there's no one coming forward to offer their services to better that. Ian, Duncan, Barry, and all that team, they are desperate, crying out for new blood. Jake and Julie have now got involved, which is really sort of ramped up the enthusiasm a touch, as you can see from Jake's face. But the idea is, though, you need that constant sort of that question. The club, as we know, haven't done everything right. They've done a lot of things. They have done a lot of things right, but you need that challenge. You need to be challenged, and I think the trust, if it's run well and organised well with the best incentives, can do that.
The thing I bang on about is always the coaches, the away games. Our crowds are up. Let's really help get them to away games. We don't see them have coaches advertised in the programme. We don't see it on the website, club website. We don't, I think, even see it on the trust website. So, which means basically the only people who are going to go are those who were on it last time. They say, yeah, I'll go again. I know they've been let down by some people not turning up lately. And unfortunately, that is going to happen occasionally. You've got to try and cover it one way or another. But that doesn't mean you give up. You've got to show to supporters that we are determined, we're going to do this. And maybe there's other things like that, just a bit more determination on things. But don't get me wrong, I'm not putting the trust down because I'm not a member, or certainly not on the board there.
No, but you're right. But then, no, you're totally right. And sort of last night, Lee would echo that the club did commit to advertising coaches on the website and on social media, which is improvement, which is good. And hopefully that cooperation can work. And as you say, Dave, we want to get as many people to away games as possible. And I think it's quite a few articles, and I know, Dave, you've mentioned this quite a bit recently about the cost of living, and I've seen quite a few articles in the mainstream press this week about it, and that is going to be a significant factor for a lot of fans with away travel, etc. And if mini coaches or coaches can help with that, that would be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, plenty of positives from last night, and we also enjoyed the company of a very entertaining referee, didn't we, Lee?
Yeah, Phil Sharp, who I'm pretty sure thought that Ian was still the boss, because he made a couple of references to that. I don't think anyone sort of gave him the heads up, which is a bit of a Freudian slip on the club's behalf, but even so. But he was the assistant referee for the 2002 World Cup, where Pierluigi Collina was the referee. And he told stories, and it was such an enjoyable evening, because usually the trust AGMs, they're not enthralling, are they, Jake, to say the very, very least?
No.
But it was really good to have that second element to it. Lawrence was sort of there. You could see he was itching to speak, but fair play to Ian. He sort of kept him at the sides for as long as what he could. So it was really good. But again, a bit more diversity and larger numbers next time. So anyone who's listening to this, please do join the trust, because that is your voice. That is your avenue into a significant change for the better for St Albans City.
Phil Sharp has referees and run the line down the park as well. Totally irrelevant, but there you go.
Yeah, he mentioned it, mate. He mentioned it. He mentioned it.
Okay.
He did. Good.
Well, you wouldn't forget it, would you? I mean, he's probably on top of it. Forget the 2000 What's It World Cup. That's number one on his CV.
Yes, officiating St Albans City against Wivenhoe Town in 1998 or whatever it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, good time. It was good.
Right. I think you've got to go, Lee. Your case is coming up soon. And we'll have a couple of games next week to talk about. I suppose we better do a prediction for next Tuesday, and we will win at
Oh
Ebbsfleet.
God! Oh no! Oh, I've got to go to Ebbsfleet. Oh no! I'll take a 2-2 there.
Lee?
I'll take 2 bloody corners, mate. Honest with you.
We had a great time last season.
Oh, don't.
Yeah. Oh, mate. I can't. Can I be honest? I can't see it ending well.
We won't lose sometime.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I think it might be next Tuesday, if I'm honest.
Can't.
It's got to be 1-0. We don't let goals in, Lee. It's got to be 1-0, isn't it?
Yeah, well, let's go for that. Why not? Sorry, boys. Sorry, Saints.
It can't be any worse than last year, can it?
Or the year before.
Yeah.
Shows how professional and prepared we are, doesn't it? That we even forgot about that game.
Yeah, we're only playing the league leaders. Only one game they haven't won this season,
Oh dear.
Oh, well. Right, we better go.
Oh dear. Thank you very much, everyone. Give us a tweet, give us an email, and we will speak to you again next week. Bye-bye.
And see you down the park Saturday.